friends, I'm Kota. Welcome back to my channel, and just plain welcome if you're new. If you are new, I'd love it if you subscribed so you can keep coming back and hanging out with me. I love hanging out with you guys. Today I am doing a speed build, which has been a rarity on my channel, but I'd really like to be doing more of. I'm not the best builder. I enjoy it, but I'm not particularly skilled with building. If that makes sense. So today's video is actually quite personal to me because I'm actually building, well, I'm doing my best to build a copy of my real life house, because I thought this would be a good way to help you get to know me a little bit, because it's almost like a real life house tour. And if you want me to do a tour, I probably wouldn't do a tour of my whole house, but if you'd like to see a tour of my office area, I'd be happy to do that if you're interested in that. I might actually put a poll up, and you can let me know if that's something that you would be into. So I have been wanting to make my real life house ever since we got terrain in The Sims, because I couldn't really do a good job of recreating my real life house without terrain. And that's because I live in Brisbane, in Queensland, Australia, and it's quite hilly where I live. The part of Brisbane that I live in is quite hilly, and my house is on a hill. And a lot of the houses around me are on hills, and the style of house I live in is actually called a Queenslander, named after the state that I live in, and they're kind of characterized by generally they're on stilts, like my house is, and this helps with the cooling, because where I live, I actually live in the subtropics. Parts of Queensland are tropical, but the area where I live is actually classified as the subtropics, but it gets very, very hot and humid. So we need houses that are built for cooling. It actually once it gets to, it's summer here at the moment, but once it gets around to winter, which is mid-year for us because we're in the southern hemisphere, so it's reversed from those of you who are in the northern hemisphere. Once I get to winter, you'll hear me complaining a lot about the temperatures, and if you ask me what the actual temperature is, you'll probably be for a lot of you, particularly anyone who has snow, it'll be that doesn't sound very cold at all. But our houses, my house at least, doesn't have any heating at all, and basically they're kind of like glorified tents in the winter, because they're designed to be incredibly drafty, because we want those cross breezes coming through in the warm months. Speaking of cross breezes, these windows that I'm doing at the front, they're actually not a very good representation of the windows that I have, because what I have are louvers, which are the type of, if you're not familiar with louver windows, they're the type that they're a bunch of strips of glass, and you pull a lever and all of the strips open. And so I have my office is actually the sunroom at the front of the house, so I get a lot of sun, and I get lovely breezes in through all my windows, because I generally have them all open, which is why you hear a lot of traffic noise. I mean, you'd hear traffic noise if I had them shut as well, so there's not a lot of point in me shutting them and stifling myself. This thing that I'm working on at the moment, I'll actually probably insert a picture. Well, I've gone past it now, but I'll actually probably insert a picture of what it looks like in real life, because I couldn't do it justice in The Sims. It's this beautiful big arch in the middle of the central space of the house, which is another big part of Queensland is you want to have this sort of central kind of heat sink that all of the cross breezes keep cool, and it's in the center, so it doesn't have direct sunlight on it. Queenslander houses are all about cooling. I actually don't have air conditioning except in one room, which is the library, which you'll see later when I do the furnishing, which is just this one very small room. Oh, that internal window that I've put in, that is a feature of my office, because my office is actually, the sunroom has been converted from, it used to be a veranda or porch, and the door that connects it to the rest of the house I didn't really have a good door to represent it. I actually have two doors. There's like a screen door, and then there's like a front door that has a doorbell on it. There's a doorbell on the door that connects my study to the rest of the house. Because, yeah, that used to be the front door, but now the front door is on the exterior of my study because it's been closed in and made to be a room. But we still have that window, which is, it's really nice to be able to open that up because then we get the cross breezes into the center of the house through the windows in my study. My carpet in my office isn't actually green. It is green, but it isn't actually patterned. But I ended up choosing the patterned carpet because it had, like, the texture of it looked more appropriate. The carpet that I have is kind of like this weird almost like outdoor carpet. It's very strange and pretty gross. So I thought this carpet really represented the grossness of my green carpet very well. Oh, and I actually have a corner desk. Like, it's like meant to be a corner desk, so I had to kind of make it by combining 3 desks together. If you're wondering why I don't change the carpet if I think it's so gross, it's because this is actually a rental house. My partner and I rent, and I have done ever since I moved to Brisbane when I was 18. So yeah, I'm stuck with gross carpet, but that's okay. This is the first of many dog beds that you'll see me placing. I wanted to make sure I placed a dog bed for every dog bed that we have in the house. So I have to place a lot of dog beds because we have 3 Shiba Inu. If you didn't know, I might have mentioned that before, and I definitely mentioned it on Twitter, but I tweet about my dogs sometimes and post pictures. So if you want to see cute dog pictures, follow me on Twitter, link down in the description. They also have an Instagram, which I will link down in the description as well if you're interested. Also follow me on Instagram if you want to, but like seriously follow my dogs because they're much more interesting than I am. I mean, I just post Sims pictures on my like Simstagram. Like, who cares about that when you can look at dogs, like really cute dogs. Oh, I have discovered that scaling down decals makes them impossible to move again because they become too thin. They also sometimes like flicker out of view a little bit. And that's just because while they're being scaled down, the thickness is also being scaled down, and since they're already incredibly thin, because they're decals, they become just sort of like unstably thin. But I really wanted to scale down those dog posters and also that like little Shiba decal because I actually have some there are like these little cards I have stuck to my wall that are Shibas. I have a lot of Shib stuff. You'll see that if I end up doing my office tour. But I love my dogs very much and I have a lot of stuff to do with them. Another thing that I have in this room is a lot of plants. Those metal shelves that I haven't done anything with yet, I'm going to be eventually filling them with plants. And basically my technique for that was to just like put a whole mess of plants on them because that's what we've got. We have a lot of plants and this is our sort of grow area. Oh, I don't actually have like mail on the floor, but I wanted to put like some kind of mess on the floor next to the bin because the dogs are actually constantly getting stuff out of my bin to like play with, like particularly like they love yogurt containers, so they like to get yogurt containers out of my bin to like lick and then play with. But basically anything in my bin is fair game for them, like bits of paper or anything. Like, we have toys for them. They have no interest in the toys that we have for them. But like anything in the bin, they love to get out and play with. So that's kind of what I was trying to represent with the mail on the floor, just kind of like a pile of stuff that had been taken out of the bin by the dogs. The line of 4 ferns in like the top left shelf, I actually did to represent, because their pots are exactly right for the herbs, the herb pots that we have, but those 4 are 4 different herbs, not just like the same plant repeated. But yeah, I sort of had to take some liberties with this, but like, I don't know, I think it's a pretty good approximation of like my little grow area. Also, I used like bags of dog food down the bottom to sort of represent like bags of potty mix, because that's where we store some bags of potty mix, but obviously there aren't bags of potty mix in the game, so use some like dog and cat food bags. So pretend that those are soil. Just use your imagination. Oh, and here I thought about using custom content in this build because I had downloaded that wall texture that is like a Queenslander house wall texture and is like very much like what our walls are, because our walls are actually like sort of slats. Like I've got the color pretty good with the color of paint that I've selected, but the walls are actually like wood slats, and then they've got a picture rail around the top. And that's sort of the case in like all of our, most of our rooms. All of them have the slats. The room I'm in at the moment, my study, actually doesn't have the picture rail because the roof is actually lower in here. I really wish we could do variable roof height in The Sims, because yeah, my house has like some rooms with like really super high ceilings, and I've kind of represented that by making the whole house like super high ceilings, but not all of it is super high ceilings. And so I'd really like to be able to get that variation. So moving on to the main bedroom, which is the one that I sleep in. I live with my partner, but we take naps in the same bed, but we don't like to sleep in the same bed like during the night, because like he snores. And we both value our sleep, and so we have the luxury of having multiple bedrooms in this house, so we're taking full advantage of that luxury. So yeah, naps we're good for, but for a good night's sleep we like to sleep separately. This is a little vanity area that's actually built in to my room. It's not a very good representation of it, but the counters were sort of the best way I could think of to do that sort of corner unit. And I did my best. In a lot of cases in this build, I've actually made choices to represent things better at like the cost of aesthetics, which was kind of painful to do. So like some of the build is like kind of like things look kind of like weird and ugly, but I've just tried to represent them as accurately as possible with the items that we have available in The Sims. So this is Adrian's bedroom that we're moving on to now, which is actually like the proportions are all off in this house. Like this room is smaller than what's being shown here, but like basically all the rooms are smaller except for my study, which I think is actually bigger than what I've built it. It's really hard to represent real spaces in The Sims accurately, like proportion wise, because we're stuck to like the grid, and like very few houses sort of conform to that grid that we have in real life. Oh, my lamp is actually a pineapple because I love pineapples. So I just picked the giraffe lamp because it's like the only lamp that's like a fun shape. So I figured that was the most appropriate thing to pick to represent my cool pineapple lamp. A lot of plosives in that sentence, so I'm really sorry about that. I do not have a pop filter, so that was probably quite unpleasant to listen to. And like I'm really conscious of all my plosives now, and like how many plosives I'm using, which is a lot. I'm really sorry. I need to get a pop filter. I need to get a new microphone. That might happen at some point, but it's not happening yet. So this is the kitchen. Well, that's kind of an obvious thing to say. You can tell it's the kitchen. It's the one with the fridge and the stove in it. That's usually a kitchen in most houses. I use a little tea display because I do actually have like that's the corner where we have like our electric kettle for boiling water for tea, and I have like this little display with like my favorite mugs that I got from this store called T2. which is, I don't know if that's places other than Australia, but it's this really nice tea shop. Oh, and this was kind of hard to work out what to do because we've got kind of this like little like nook where the stove is, and then there's like a shelf above it. Ideally that archway would have been flat, so like the shelf would just like sit at the top of the archway, but that wasn't really an option, so it just looked kind of silly. But I was just trying to represent as accurately as possible like what my kitchen is like, and so this is how I chose to do it, and it does look quite silly. Oh, this bathroom I ended up making too wide, which is kind of frustrating because it looks like ridiculously big. This little toilet room is clearly, this has been added on. It's clearly an addition to the house, because this house, when it was first built, it was built with an outhouse. Because this house is over 100 years old. It's quite an old place, and it's been added onto and changed over the years, like I was talking about with the sunroom. Oh, and there's something wildly inaccurate in this bathroom, and that's the bath. So we do have a tub, and it is triangular, and it is in that spot, but it's not like a full-sized bath. It is like a baby bath. I believe that at one point this house was used as a daycare, and I think that's why the baby bath was installed. But it's literally like I can sit in it, but like with my legs like crossed and my knees up a little bit. Like that's like the only way to get into the bath. You cannot, as an adult, you cannot submerge yourself in the water. So it's kind of useless, and it just takes up space. But we don't have baby baths in The Sims. We're moving on to the library now, which is the one air-conditioned room that we kind of refer to as the bunker during the summer, because we sort of retreat in there with the dogs. And it also connects to Adrian's study and like sort of like work area. He likes to build Gunpla, which are like these like Gundams. If you're not familiar, they're like a type of anime about like these giant like mech robots. And Gunpla is like the hobby of like building plastic models of them. So kind of like how like people will sometimes build like model ships from like kits and stuff like that. It's kind of like that, only they're like of like giant like mecha robots. And I used the MySim trophies to represent like his collection of like Gunpla on display. And then I put out a lot of tools to sort of show his like work area. And a little like, that's not the kind of robot that they are, but like I put a robot there because, well, it's a robot. And I'm using these like paint tubes from Bydebug. I believe they're the ones that the toddlers pull out when they're like doing the make a mess interaction. And I also used the paint cans because like he has a beautiful collection of paints, and I wanted to represent that. This whole room is like a wonderful cluttered like lived-in mess, and so I really wanted to like properly represent all of the stuff that he works on, because he also builds like custom like video game controllers and things like that. So he has like a lot of tools and art supplies and everything like that, and it's a very cluttered and lived in room, and I thought it was really important to like represent that. I don't know that I could happily work in such a cluttered room. You notice that like my study has like quite a different aesthetic, but this is what Adrian's room looks like, and I wanted to like make sure that I was true to that. So we're going into the lounge room now. It was really important to me to like have our beautiful green rug. Our rug is actually like sort of a brighter green than that. It's sort of like a very grass green. Also, you notice that I'm putting the couches together in an L. We don't actually have an L-shaped couch. We have exactly what I'm doing. We have two couches that are put together in an L. And I actually like to sit in the corner. So I have like an armrest on each side. I don't know, I can stretch my legs out along the one that's sort of like perpendicular to the TV. That's the one that I like to sit on and stretch out on, because it's very indulgent, but I like it. Just changing all the colors because I suddenly realized that there was like a wood tone option. I'm using this like little unit a lot. In 3 of the cases it actually represents a kallax. If you're familiar with the IKEA catalogue, by the way, the bookcases in the library are all Billy bookcases, if you're familiar with IKEA Billy bookcases. That in my study, like the 2 that I have in my study and the one that I have in this dining room, of that sort of like long, low sort of like console. It's not really a console, it's just like a shelving unit. Like, anyway, that's like a kallax for IKEA nerds. If you're not an IKEA nerd, then that's fine, it's not really important. But yeah, there isn't really anything in The Sims that looks quite like a kallax, which is unfortunate because I think it's a really great versatile piece. Obviously I do. I have 3 of them in my house. It's the one that like it kind of just has like all like these cube cubbies in it, and you can have it either like vertical or horizontal. I have all mine horizontal. And then you can put like baskets and like drawers and stuff in them and modify them with like, you can do like built-in drawers or just like boxes that you pull in and out. Anyway, kallaxes are great. I love my kallaxes. Anyway, we've moved on to the outside. I've just got those whirlybirds on the roof that add to additional cooling. We're all about cooling here. And I'm just trying to sort of like work on the garden. I actually do some of this off camera in the end, like the under the house area I end up doing off camera. That's mainly because I actually had some footage get corrupted because my hard drive became full. But that's okay. We've still got quite a lot of the build, and it makes this speed build that is already so very long a little bit shorter, which I think is a good thing. We're actually mercifully coming up on the end here. This landscaping is kind of like the last thing that I'm doing. Our backyard, we have a lot of lawn. Our yard kind of like slopes up to the back. I originally was like trying to like make the whole yard look like it fitted into place, but in the end I just like have that big ridge up the back because like I'm trying to represent the yard, and my yard slopes up. I wanted to put a clothesline out. We actually have a Hills hoist in the yard, which is a type of clothesline. I'll actually insert a picture here. We're about to go into the cinematics, so I'm going to leave you here. If you want to download this house, it's on the gallery. I'm not really sure why you would want to download it. It hasn't been play tested. A lot of it is likely not playable because I built it to look like it looks in real life rather than to be functional. So like some stuff is like sized up and down. But if you are interested in taking a closer look at it, it'll be up on the gallery to download. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of my house, and like if you want me to do a tour of my study. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye!